Thank you. Great. So I'm the lucky guy who is between you and a wonderful trip home. So I will canter through these 125 slides, only joking. So a little bit about us to start with. Before I get into that particular slide, a bit about GSK. So we're split into three distinct business units: vaccines, pharmaceuticals, and consumer. So vaccines, we shipped circa 800 million doses last year. Consumer, we shipped circa 18 billion doses last year. And pharmaceutical side of the business, we shipped circa 4 billion doses last year. So a huge organisation, global, very complex. And the thing with regards to GSK and with regards to drug development specifically, if we think about investment and time, a couple of examples here. So with regards to investment, it costs circa £1 billion for us to take a drug from initial chemical compound discovery to FDA approval. We then have a 7-year period of time where we have a patent in order to recoup that investment. With regards to time, 2 examples. First one, in response to the Ebola outbreak in Liberia in 2015, we were able to accelerate drug development of our Ebola vaccine from years down to less than 1 year. But then on the flip side to that, we brought it's the world's first malaria vaccine to market last year. From initial scientific notes to FDA approval, that took 30 years. So hopefully that gives you some context around the complexity of what we do. I work for REF, Worldwide Real Estate and Facilities. We operate a number of our sites. We don't operate all of those sites. Those are all of our properties, but we manage circa 50 sites globally across Europe, North America, and the Asia Pacific region. And these are basically our R&D hubs, so where the science happens, and also our commercial spaces. So if you travel in on the M4, you'll see GSK House, our global HQ, based in Brentford. So that's all the corporate stuff. What I would like to share with you is a personal insight, really. So which has hopefully helps you understand my motivation behind developing and leading this program. So my eldest son, Jack, is 17 this month. Jack's asthmatic. He's a pretty talented footballer, very passionate about football. He supports Liverpool, but we won't go there. But Jack started to really struggle with his asthma about 2 years ago. It was having a real impact on his football. Grumpy teenage lads are the worst people at the best of times, but when they're grumpy and they can't play the sport they love, then it's pretty awful. So we tried all sorts of different remedies, ideas, swimming, you name it. Jack was then prescribed a drug called Ellipta. So we manufacture Advair, which is a Ventolin blue inhaler product. That gets circa 20% of the medicine to the sweet spot. Ellipta uses exactly the same medicine, but it actually gets circa 70% to the sweet spot. So we produced that product, Jack was prescribed it, and it transformed his life. So that's my personal experience. That's what sort of created this burning desire in me to make this program happen. We partnered with CBRE and Sodexo. You can read the various value propositions there for ourselves, CBRE and Sodexo. And it's so far taken 2 years, 3 months to bring this program from initial development to an end. So, strategic planning and alignment. Just very briefly here, I want to just talk about how we aligned the vision of the program to our corporate vision. This was all about taking 24 services. That's our total service portfolio, and that stretches from the likes of fitness and cleaning through to pretty complex services such as laboratory instrument support, infrastructure, technical drawings, etc. What we were able to do was to, rather than tackle these services as a big service, we broke them down into sub-services. So if we look at, if we take food as an example, using the 4 Ps approach, it's food price, food place, food promotion, to just split them down so we could just tackle them bit by bit. We had, when we started, incredibly, over 2,000 different ways of delivering these 24 services globally. One of the examples I used when we were doing the initial engagement around this was Starbucks. So Starbucks operate 23,000 stores globally. serve over 1 billion cups of coffee a year. If they had 23,000 different types of uniform, crockery, etc., it would be chaotic. We weren't as bad as that, but it wasn't great. So the baseline, where we started from, we took some real learning from a Harvard Business Review article entitled "Stop Trying to Delight Your Customers," and this was really about companies who focus hard on going the extra mile are outshone by companies that focus hard on a consistent delivery of brilliant basics. So it was a real eye-opener for us, and it really helped us then develop our baseline customer metric, which you can see on the bar chart on the bottom there. It's the customer effort score. So it's the same calculation as a net promoter score, but obviously different questions to enable us to understand how difficult or easy it is for our customers to get what they need out of our services. The scale stretches from +100 to -100. +100 would be effortless, simple to get what you need. -100 would be impossible. You can see here the bars themselves represent the importance of the services that we surveyed. The line graph shows the actual scores. So the service on the far left of the graph is laboratory instrument support. So there's pretty much a perfect storm going on there. It's highly important, and it wasn't practically impossible for our scientists to get what they need out of that service, but it was pretty difficult. And that's a really critical service. So when we take a drug through to FDA approval, if it's been tested or developed on a piece of machinery that is uncalibrated, then that will stop that approval. So back to the investment piece of £1 billion to develop a drug, that's a big risk there. More importantly for me, someone mentioned the war for talent earlier today. These guys are our absolute engine for growth and engine for development. If they can't get what they need in our laboratories, then we will lose them. So that was an area that we really needed to focus hard on. You can see some of the other services there, meeting services, fitness, food and catering, etc. So that was our baseline. Our overall score in REF was -48%. So sent some shockwaves around the organisation, in all honesty. It wasn't a great surprise to our team, to my boss, myself. It wasn't a great surprise, but it was a bit of a wake-up call, and it enabled us to have a baseline to understand where we go to next. We then conducted a SWOT exercise. With regards to the weaknesses, we were able to theme those weaknesses, and this was basically around complexity in the existing service model, lack of performance management. We weren't in a position where we're actually measuring the performance of our services, and then also inconsistency across sites in how we were delivering the services. So that's the background, that's the context. That then led us on to design the intervention, which was the Service Standardisation program. So I won't go through great detail of this, but I'll just give you a flavour of what we did. So each service underwent a 20-week end-to-end process. We worked very closely with our service providers. So we have a service owner model in GSK, but we've worked with over 200 subject matter experts from Sodexo and CBRE. Basically, the thinking there was, execution was key here, and if we work with the people who are going to execute these services, and they help us develop and design them, they will have a higher degree of ownership, and therefore we've got a stronger chance of delivery. So basically, the process started with us, and we had a team of 3, Joe and Christine in Pennsylvania and myself, and we basically started by engaging the service owners, subject matter experts. We then went out to our customers, and we advised our service owners to talk to the highest complaining customers, people that hate what we do the most because they've got the best stuff to say. On average, we got 100 pieces of feedback per service, and that then enabled us to theme the feedback to help us understand where we go next. We also then collated the current activities by service, so by region, Asia Pac, North America and Europe. We're able to agree what current activities are in place, and then we went into a workshop. So we ran a 4 half-day workshop through video technology, with North America teams and UK teams for each of the services. And basically what we did there was we agreed by activity, by sub-service, what the new global standards would be. And then the back end of the workshop was very much about understanding how we can close those gaps. So if we said, right, we agree that the current activity in Asia Pacific for ground transportation is the new global standard, how can the European and North America teams close their current performance or current gap to meet that standard? Then we wrote up all of the standards into a service guarantee, which I'll come on to later. All of our operational teams signed off each service operationally to say it's live in their business. And then finally, KPI development. So each service ended the process with a set of defined KPIs that enabled the service owners to understand if we're winning or losing. So where we were, as I said before, was complexity, lack of performance management, and inconsistency. Where we are now is we've managed to undo a lot of complexity. There's an enormous amount of war stories, as you can imagine, that has come out of this particular program, doing things so violently differently in some parts of the world to other parts of the world, as to actually sites that are 11 miles apart, delivering what we would consider a simplistic service very, very differently. And this is basically something that had grown over time because customers had said individually, what about you doing this for us? So the services have just grown exponentially without any sort of consistency. So we've got the consistency in place now, we've got the robust performance management process, and we also have 24 written up chapters of our service guarantee. And this now enables us to be in a stronger position to grow. So as we're onboarding sites in various parts of the world, we can actually say from that portfolio now, okay, if you're a site in LATAM or a site in Brussels, do you want to take, or we agree that you take 4 of our services, right here are the service guarantee chapters, this is how it's delivered, and we can deliver a consistent service model globally. Solution implementation management. So this is our management reporting system, our knowledge centre. Fantastic piece of work by one of my colleagues, and this is where we now store all of our KPIs. They're updated monthly, they're RAG rated, and this basically enables our service owners to review, as I said, if we're winning or losing. Prior to this piece of work, or this programme, I was asked to complete a service review of one of the services I own, housekeeping, and it took me 2 weeks to pull together the information. It was just painful. Now, at a click of a button, we can download it, and we've got it there. We knew we needed to truly engage our team around this. It was a desktop change management audit before we went into this program, but we scored 45 out of 60. It was a significant change, taking over 6 months, affecting over 1,000 people, highly complex. So we developed a pretty simple piece of branding. You said we did. We continue to engage our customers, so having pop-up, stop, start, continue sessions where we're able to collect feedback from our customers at the point of service. And what we also did as we engaged our operational teams and our other functional teams was we used a lot of patient imagery. So we have a whole library of patient stories, patient videos, and we felt that we really wanted to engage people's hearts as well as heads about this, because this is really about releasing time and cost back to our business in order to deliver our drugs faster to our patients. So I'll go on to some of our case studies here. So each of the, I had asked each of the services to develop a pre and a post to help us understand where we've moved from and to. With regards to lab instrument support, as you remember earlier, there was a perfect storm going on there. It was in a really bad place. The CBRE service owner, Kat Wilson, really took this piece of work on board and did a phenomenal job. They undertook a customer mapping exercise. They conducted 15-minute interviews with over 70 of their key scientific customers. And you can see on the screen there where the frustrations were in 2015. It was basically described as a black hole. So it was basically a case of, I think we're at something like 85% of all initial points of contact in that service were turned around within 7 days. That's nothing to be proud of. We spun that round to, it begins with a 9, so it's 90% of initial points of contact now are turned around within 24 hours. So that and a whole host of other activities, things such as rather than the engineers just turning up at the side of the scientists unannounced, it was a case of pre-populating their diary, using photographs of the engineers. They developed a huge customer service culture within the service. They employed a new consultant to actually develop a customer service program. So it really changed the culture of the service and enabled us to be in a position where we're doing things faster and better within that particular service. Laboratory services. So this was really interesting. This was, again, this was a poorly rated service initially. Something that we did at the very start of the program with this particular service was the guys who ran this service had been toying with the idea of developing a new role within the service, that of a laboratory, an LSC. And basically, this is about taking as many jobs away from the scientist as possible in order to let them release their time to actually do the science. Now, I do not have a scientific background. Somebody who is far more intelligent than me described it to me, because they obviously saw I was struggling in the workshop, as think of it as a chef. So the more prep, the more work you can take away from the chef, the more time the chef has got to actually focus on cooking the food. So we agreed a global standard for this role, and basically this role, it's been a huge success. So we agreed the ratio, so 1 LSC to every 75 scientists. These numbers are based on deployment of 12 roles. This role has been so successful, it's now grown. We're going to move from 30 to 50 roles. And the time release back is a very conservative estimate. Typically, we were advised that we should work on about releasing 20% of our scientists' time back. The number there is 5%, so huge amount of time released back to the business. Some of the softer services, so fitness, we were able to develop a fitness brand. So again, part of the research that we undertook initially showed that we have a very transient workforce. We've got over 100,000 employees globally. We very much sponsor agile working. Personally, I can work in a different site every day. I was having an inconsistent experience every day at every site. And this is a great example of us developing a brand, talking to our customers, asking them what the important stuff is, and then acting on it and developing this bespoke fitness brand for GSK. You can see some of the metrics there around membership, active participation of those members, and also happy or not. So some good results there. And similarly with food, a couple of things with food here. Again, we developed a brand and we've tested it in 2 sites, one in the Delaware Valley and one in Ware. Some great output from this piece of work. So we've seen healthy choices improved by about 8%. We've seen actual sales improved by about 18%. And you can see some of the other metrics there, happy or not, and participation. Something else that we did with regards to the food workshop was say we need to get to a global standard with regards to queuing. We need to have a target. The average lunch hour is 27 minutes. I timed it myself from the furthest part of the building in GSK House to getting a sandwich and back, and it took me well over 27 minutes. You know, we've got 4,000 people in GSK House on a 50% participation ratio. That's 2,000 people in an hour trying to get served. It's pretty big stuff. So one of the guys volunteered to be our queuing guru. Far more intelligent than me. He's a Lean Six Sigma expert. We did 400 individual observations of people queuing. And basically we got to a point where, yes, we invested some money in technology, which reduced queue times by, I think it was about 8%. But the most important thing we did was switch off the receipt printer. So we were printing receipts for every transaction. Only 1 in 30 people actually wanted a receipt. Turned it off, and that reduced queue time by just over 40%. So again, time released back to very busy individuals. Some other examples here. So as I said, we've finished the program. taking 24 services through the programme. VOC, our voice of the customer, internal measure for negative feedback, has reduced in this particular service. But you can see again just some other examples here. So I come from a commercial background. It's been drummed into me over the years about return on investment, and what I wanted to do with this programme was actually, and I'm a Yorkshireman, spend as little as possible. We managed to deliver this programme, and it's something I'm so proud of, with basically a programme team of 3 people. We recruited volunteer facilitators to run the workshops. We've estimated in time that this programme has cost us £60,000 to run. What we didn't want to do was necessarily show that return from a financial point of view. We felt that it was more important to show that return from a time return back to the business point of view. And just before I go on to that big reveal of how much time we've released back, happy or not, this is a piece of work that came out of the programme. We're now, if not then one of the biggest corporate users of Happy or Not. We've got a number of terminals at every point of service, and again you can see pre and post where we're at. We're currently tracking, I believe year to date, we're currently tracking at just over 90% in totality. So that's great, but it's now about what's next, because if we've overachieved our initial target, how do we now stretch it on to deliver our service better? So yeah, that's a big reveal. So basically, we've calculated that we've released 7.31 years back to the organisation. I've shown you a couple of examples. There are many more, and this is really important to us and to myself as well, because we're obviously not going to say now, okay, that means that we can deliver one drug in 0 time, or we can do X, Y, and Z. But hopefully it helps quantify the fact that we're making our employees' lives easier. What they do with that time is up to them. But hopefully by reducing queue time, by taking jobs off our scientists that used to hinder them in drug development, we will start to see some benefits coming through in our R&D pipeline. And just to finish, one of our senior customers gave us a fantastic bit of feedback. So hopefully that is from our customer. You can see that we've achieved something pretty good with this. So that's the close of my presentation. 5 minutes early, so you can get the tune. But if there's any questions, please fire away.
Thanks very much, Dominic. That was sounds like obviously a fantastic journey and some great achievements there. Quick question from me before I open it out to the audience. In terms of other support services within GSK, are they centralised on a global basis?
Yes, they are. Yes, so we work on a model where we do have core business services. So yes, the likes of HR, IT, L&D, etc.
So you were sort of following. There was understanding of the business of the benefits that could bring in terms of real estate and FM.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we ran after action reviews after every session of every workshop. So we ran over, 150 after action reviews. So this is a very lean, sharp product now, and we've had a lot of interest certainly from IT, where the workshop materials and the workshop model has been taken forward in other areas of IT, which is great. So
absolutely. Okay, any questions from the audience or comments?
Yeah, we haven't got an operation the size of yours, but we've got offices in 115 countries. I'm responsible for FM in the UK. We are starting to look at how they operate their own businesses, so we're looking at how we get some standards across there. And one of the few countries I've been to is Bangladesh. And what I realised there is their capabilities in FM are very different here. So I was wondering if you had sort of standard issues and ability issues, because there was no point in going over there with our maintenance contract, because most of it they wouldn't have understood.
Yeah.
So trying to, and there's different levels of capability across the world. I don't know what your geographical spread is.
Yeah.
But there's a job to have, if you like, a one size fits all, although we want that standardisation.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And this piece of work was very much about getting the basics in place. So this isn't about having the sexiest innovation in the world. Typically our service owners would historically have jumped to that innovative thinking. This was about pulling people back to get the basics in place. From that point of view, it is a globally scalable piece of work, but the thing that we found with this particular piece of work is the culture clash. So we found, we tried to launch the program, although the Asia team had put the input into the program at the beginning, launch it 3 times in the Asia Pacific region. It didn't happen. It happened on the 4th. When we investigated it and researched it, this was purely down to the culture clash. In the West, we were looking to deploy up to 8 services in one go. The guys in the Asia team, they just disagreed with that. That isn't the way that they operate, and rightly so. So we were able to show some flexibility in order to be able to deploy it.
Any other questions?
Yes, it's really interesting. What's your balance between kind of in-house provision versus outsourced, and what's the relative contribution that the in-house team versus the external providers make to the transformation?
It's a very high percentage of outsourced, incredibly high percentage of outsourced. So our service owner model will probably be the best way to describe it. So I'm the service owner for grounds maintenance. In all honesty, I have very little to do with that service on a day-to-day basis. It is delivered by our service owners. When we look at some of the more technical services, such as lab instrument support, lab services, we have service owners there that are more involved. So say grounds maintenance, it's 95% outsourced, 5% insourced. The more technical services, it could be more like 30% insourced, 70% outsourced. So hopefully that makes sense, but the sort of closer to the line of delivery of science, the more insourced we are.
So the contribution of the supplier is then really key to the
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It was a great example of partnership. So this wasn't about us designing something behind closed doors and saying we want you to now deliver this. This was all about execution, and therefore we needed to get our partners involved at the very, very early stages and just help us design the services.
Just following on, did they buy in really easily at that point, or did that take a bit of work?
It took a bit of work initially because, and again a lesson learned for me, presenting everything in one go created a bit of an oh my god moment, and it was a case of how we're going to do this, how we're going to resource up to it. As we started to run the early pilots for housekeeping and lab instrument support, it became very clear that the feedback the guys were giving the senior teams in the service partner organisations was very positive, so that there were wins all round. So, but it was a tough start, yeah, it was.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much, Dominic. That was a really interesting journey you talked us through there.
Thank you. Cheers.